Starting.
We're live. Hi, everybody. This is great. I love it when technology works, and I hope it's working for you guys. My name's Jean Johnstone, and I'm the Executive Director at Teaching Artists Guild, and I'm here with Lynn Johnson today to talk through some really exciting stuff about teaching artists and the identity of teaching artists, possibly as entrepreneurs. So we're going to get all deep and into that today. So thanks so much for joining us. Teaching Artists Guild is a small but strong national organization based out of California, and we are dedicated to strengthening the field of teaching artistry. And that looks like a lot of different things, from advocacy and professional development to talking and thinking about the philosophy of what we do and why, down to the nitty gritty. Are you getting paid, and are you putting bread on the table, and all those sorts of issues? And how does your art actually play into it all? So those are some of the topics that we work on every day, and we're really excited to be here with you. So Lynn, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I'm happy to. Hi, everyone. I am Lynn Johnson, and I am a proud National Advisory Committee member for Teaching Artists Guild. One of the co-founding members of Teaching Artists Guild, actually. And I am also the co-founder and CEO of an organization, of a business, of a for-profit social venture that produces Go Girls Camp, which is based here in the San Francisco Bay Area. We should say that Jean and I are both calling in today from Oakland, California. And Go Girls Camp is a summer camp primarily for young girls, where girls are learning and practicing social emotional skills through the creation of original theater, visual art, music, and media. And I'll talk a lot more about that on our call today, on our webinar here. I am just a little bit of housekeeping on this webinar. I have the back end technology here to kind of make things pop up and all that kind of stuff. So I'll be kind of playing around with buttons as we talk, and I can see that people are joining this webinar pretty rapidly. It's so exciting. So many of you signed up to join this conversation, and so I just love that there is so much interest in teaching artists making more money. That's like what I care about most in the world. So Jean, do you want to give this little poll as we're waiting for people to come in?
Yeah, absolutely. So as we're waiting for folks to come in, we're really interested in knowing, where are you? So Lynn, I can't see anything yet. I don't know if I'm supposed to, but we are going to ask you to enter yourselves into this poll. Where are you? Are you in California, West Coast? Are you on the East Coast, Midwest, South? What are you in? And hopefully you have an option to pick something there. And
yeah. I think what's happened, Gina, the people are answering like a question, and I think that what's happening is because I brought you in on this through a different link. You're not seeing what everybody else is seeing, so, so trust that that is happening. So yes, we're seeing, it's kind of all over the place now. Some couple from California, some from the Northeast, one from the South, few from the Midwest, a couple from other. Very cool. One thing I want folks to know too is that we will be taking questions throughout this webinar, and at some point we will enable questions and answers on the right side of your screen there. So when we do, that's when you can type in the questions that Jean and I can address at some point during the presentation. So yeah, I'm sorry, Jean, you can't see where people are coming in from. It's pretty much all around the country, and a couple of others. I wonder if there are people who are from other parts of the world, or if we just didn't get the right regional name or whatever. But
great.
pretty
Yay.
even between California, the Northeast, the Midwest.
Whoops. And all kinds of cool places. That's fantastic. Yay. All right. Well, should we get this party started?
Yeah.
Fantastic. We said this was going to be a lively discussion, so I hope we can live up to that, Lynn.
I think we can. We've done it before.
Okay. Yay! Well, we're going to start a little bit with our backgrounds and stories and how we got into this, and kind of use that as a way to take you through the rest of this presentation and discussion. I will tell you a tiny bit of where I'm coming from, and then I'm going to ask Lynn about her story to give us a little bit more in depth about what she does in a little bit more detail. So I am a teaching artist with a theater background who came to this work a little bit by accident. I trained in Shakespeare and Chekhov and the Russian language, and then found myself teaching on the side and really enjoying that. And slowly over many years and many experiences, discovered that this was something that I valued equally to my art making. And eventually that took over a little bit. And here I am running an organization that's dedicated to helping other people strengthen their craft in this field as artists who teach and artists who work in communities, because we define this quite broadly. So that's the mini version of where I'm coming from on this. But Lynn, I want to ask you, you were talking a little bit about Go Girls there in your intro, but what is it you guys do? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. Do you want to know what we do or my story?
Kind of both. Let's start with your story, and then we'll get into the.
Great. So well, first of all, I am super proud that this year, 2016, marks my 25th anniversary as a teaching artist. I'm very proud of that fact. And I come from the theater side of things. And throughout my, I started off as an actor and have been teaching most of my adult life, all of my adult life actually. And most of my career was all about devising original theater with kids primarily, but also with adults and communities. And I was really into devising kind of naturally, I think, because, I don't know, I just was never really trained in scripted material. People would always ask me, like, what plays should we do? And I was always like, I don't know the scripts. And so it just was natural for me to make up plays with people. And so I was always doing that work. And I realized as I was going, it took me about 10 years of my career before I thought I was any good at it. And then at about the 10-year mark, I started to notice, here are the types of, I'm creating plays with kids that really start with their internal experience. I started using creative movement and theater forms, a lot of Boal stuff, a lot of Spolin stuff, to create work with young performers that allowed them to articulate their connection to really big picture kind of social emotional themes like community and change, social change and things like that. And so I started doing, so when I started my business in 2002, I started to do the work I do now. 2006, I went into business. When I started doing that and I started creating some more camps around with my wife, Allison Kenny, around the kind of way we made theater. And And when I started to get into business, I realized, oh, okay, so like, when you talk about business, you always talk about like, what problem are you solving in the world? And I didn't know. I was like, well, I just do theater with kids. I don't know. It's fun. I'm not sure what kind of problem I'm solving. But in 2008, I went to a seminar at the Greater Good Science Center at UC Berkeley, and they're a super amazing organization that teaches the science of a meaningful life. And I heard a speaker there, a famous researcher, Paul Ekman, talk about how the Dalai Lama says that the biggest problem the world faces is a lack of compassion. And when I heard that, it was like a light bulb went off in my head, and I was like, well, if that's the biggest problem, I want to solve that problem. And I realized that the work I've been doing through devising theater was about giving young people the opportunity to really learn and practice the skills they need to love themselves more, to love each other more, and to love the planet more, no matter what, past all of our differences and all of the things and all of our suffering. And so that's really became the heart of what we do. In our Go Girls camp, our Go Girls mission statement is that we are igniting a compassion revolution by putting girls center stage. We really believe that women and girls are the leaders that we need to lead a more compassionate world. And so we just happen to believe that we can learn these and practice these skills better through the arts and through play, because compassion lives at the heart of our humanity. And the only way to get to the heart of our humanity is through art. So that's what we do. So in our camps, the girls create and perform their own original plays in 2 weeks that really explore these pro-social themes and allow them to connect as community.
Wow. Yay. I love your story so much.
Thank you.
Yes. What's kind of doubly interesting about it is the way that you broke down what you were talking about in that description. You talked about what you do. You talked a little bit about how you do it, but you also talked about the why. And I think that really gets to the heart of a lot of the work that we've been doing lately. I've had the honor of working with Jean Taylor, another fabulous Jean, over at Lincoln Center in New York. And we came together on a national project to look at the teaching artist philosophy. And building out the why of what we do as artists and as teaching artists, and how important that is to what we do. Many of you folks might be familiar with the Teaching Artist Manifesto that came about with a fabulous group of people from across the U.S. About how long ago, Lynn? You were on that team 2 years ago or 1 year ago now. Really talking about, what it is a teaching artist does, where they work, and all of these really powerful statements about the work. And Jean Taylor and I began to think about, well, this gets us towards the why, which is this really, really important component of what we're doing. Why? Why do we do this? So one of the exercises in the workshop that we developed together is looking at your own practice. And this is looking at your teaching artist practice, regardless of whether you have kind of made a business out of it or not. If you're sort of a solo practitioner, finding an example of your practice and looking at what happened, how did that happen, and then from there being able to get to the underlying beliefs of why. Why did this go down this way? What do I believe? What do I bring to this process that informs the how and the what of what I'm doing? And from that, we developed the beginnings of a draft statement around teaching artist philosophy. I am a teaching artist. I believe. And you talk about what you believe in, your core values that you've been able to look at deeply through this process, that we go through in this lengthy workshop. And then because of my beliefs, this is what I do. And using that as a starting place for going further and deeper in your work as a teaching artist.
So I love this framework. I'd love to share mine. When you gave me this tool, I wrote mine out, Jean, and I wrote that I am a social entrepreneur and girl advocate. Mm-hmm. I believe that girls and women are the ones who will lead us in making a more compassionate world and creating a more compassionate world. And I also believe that the skills of compassion are practiced through the arts and play. And because of my beliefs, I create multimedia learning products, services, and events that celebrate and activate girls and women.
That's fantastic. Will you email that to me and Jean Taylor? We want to use that.
Great. I'm happy to. I love the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so I think that, let's see, I'm going to take questions. We're going to take questions and answers soon, right? But not quite yet.
But not quite yet.
We want to talk a little bit. One thing I love about the project, the philosophy project, is as an entrepreneur, I know that my business starts with my why. I have to be able to articulate my why and my how and my what in order to, get any customers at all, right? So I know in the teaching arts profession, when we kind of first start out, we know what we do. We know what our art form is, right? We were trained in, as an actor or as a dancer or as a painter or whatever you happen to be, and we know we want to teach that. But before we develop our philosophy, we're kind of just taking any job we can get to make money, which is totally fine, and that's something that needs to happen because we got to make money. But when we start to articulate our philosophy and start to find our how and our what, then we're really creating a structure. We're creating a foundation that makes us more powerful out in the marketplace. Instead of us kind of waiting around for someone to hire us because we happen to teach theater, we now have a structure that we bring to the marketplace and say, here is this thing, and I do this thing because of this, and I do it in this particular way, which differentiates me from somebody else. And then here's what I do. And then suddenly we have a lot more power, and that's like the real, to me, advantage of thinking of ourselves or becoming a business entity, is that we get to do that kind of work.
That's really interesting. This may be the moment that I run leaping into the Atlantic article that we referenced in putting this together. That was really the foundation or the thing that inspired us to bring this conversation to the table in a lot of ways. Can we do a poll? Did anybody read that? Do we have that as background? I'm just curious where people are on this. So this article, this came out last year in the Atlantic, The Death of the Artist and the Birth of the Creative Entrepreneur. And I loved it. It's so interesting. I can reread it a number of times and keep getting meaty bits out of it. But there's this, there's pros and cons, this whole concept of putting yourself out there on the marketplace in a particular fashion as an artist. I think it's complicated, but what struck me most recently rereading this, and that was this morning, going back again and reading this article in preparation for speaking with you again here today, is this notion of, well, regardless of how, what I believe in terms of how I operate as an artist within the capitalist system that exists in the U.S. Today. I gotta put bread on the table, and one of the really great things about being a teaching artist is that you have the ability to do that. For better or for worse, and that's something that we at Teaching Artists Guild spend a lot of time looking at, making better for people, right? That folks value this, that they're going to pay their teaching artists well and provide for them and all this kind of stuff. But it just sort of, I'm starting to meander here, but
yeah, I know what you're saying. I mean, that there's something that's really interesting. That article really struck me because I think that I've always been kind of entrepreneurial, and so I have I've always thought, like, how do I take what I do and make a business out of it, and that I can, sell to something to meet a customer's need, right? But, like, it's difficult. Like, when you're really more, there are artists, and I'm sure there's a lot of people on the call who are much more about, like, well, my art is the thing that I'm doing. Like, I don't want to have to sell something else. Like, I just want to make my art, and that should be enough. And I think that, what's so interesting about the article and why it struck me is because, it's kind of, unfortunately, it's not enough. You know what I mean? Like, there's something about the way that our society is set up that makes it so that, I think the article said, like, no matter what business you're in these days, you're encouraged to be entrepreneurial. Like, you have to put yourself out there, and like,
that's the way the economy is moving right now. And okay, is it, sink or swim, regardless of whether I believe in this or not, as a great way to survive, to exist and function as an artist in the world. This is the system exists. So how do I operate within this and put bread on the table?
Right. I mean, I guess we could fight against it, right? We could, I mean, we're artists, like, we could work to change the system. And I think I believe, and just so you can't see it, Jean, but a few people answered, a few people read the article, some didn't. Most people didn't answer the question in the poll, did you read the Atlantic Monthly article? So some people know what we're talking about. But, I think that I'm a big believer, I think, in changing the system from the inside. And that's just how I go about it. So, so that's why I believe I'm super excited, and I'll talk a little bit more about this on the call, as we go, but I'm really excited about where business is going, and there's all kinds of different business structures, and there's all kinds of people who are thinking about business in ways beyond profitability.
Yeah.
And I believe, that as an artist, I deserve money for what I do, and I believe that teaching artists have such the perfect combination of skills in today's society to be sold, because we know how to make and create, and we know how to teach other people to be their best creative selves. And this is the time where everyone kind of wants to be creative and everyone wants to be an artist, and we get to teach people how to do that, and people should pay us to do that. So why not start a business around that?
You nailed it. Absolutely. What she said. So much of the work of the last 2 years for me is centered on debunking this myth of the starving artist. And what this author does so well is take us through sort of the history of that notion of the artist through time, from the artisan to the sponsored artist, and patronage and all this sort of thing, through to this romantic starving artist notion, the vestiges of which linger today and don't serve us, because you deserve to be paid for what you do, and paid well, and to live a good life. So let's get to those things.
Yeah, and we'll make sure to send the link to this article when we'll follow up this call with an email, and we'll make sure that we send that out to people, so people who have not read it can read it. But yeah, so let's dig in. Should we dig in a little bit more into business stuff?
Should we dig into business stuff, or do we need a question break?
Well, we can take a question break. Sure. Let me enable that. Yeah, good. So then people should be able to type up questions on the side, and we can answer them. While we're waiting for questions to come in, should I keep going?
Yeah, let's keep going. I want to hear about the foundations of the work you started to talk about when you were talking about mission statement, from the why of what you do and how that feeds into being an entrepreneur.
Well, let me share this presentation again. Okay. Jean, are you able to see my screen?
I am, yes.
Great. So I just wanted to talk a little bit more about, I want to talk about a couple of examples of what I consider to be successful teaching artist businesses that I have found. And I just want there to be so many more of them. That's why I'm doing this. I just feel like, again, like I said, we just have such an amazing skill set that's prime for business. And so I just am so excited about this. But here are a couple of examples. I call, first of all, there's this, I found Randy Emberlin. Some of you might know him. He is a animator based out in Portland, and he's a really successful animator. And if you go to his website, randyemberlin.com, you'll see he has a really great business structure in place. He shows how he's successful as an artist in the digital arts world. He also teaches classes. He teaches after-school classes in the Portland area. And so his website's really clear and really about like who he is and what he does and what he is, how he is serving the world through his art form. And I call this model, this is an example of a really successful self-employment model. There might be a better word than that, but I consider like self-employed artists people who their main mission is their art form. Like I am an animator. I want to do my work well in the world. I want more people and young people to know about animation, and I want to do it the best I can in my own style as an artist. And I think it's a fantastic model for a teaching artist business. So other examples of this are dance studios, people who, again, my daughter took a ballet class here in Oakland. Some fantastic top-notch ballet dancers. They open a studio in Oakland. They have fantastic classes. They're really spreading their mission of ballet through their work. Now, the other side of this slide is Kathy Davis, who is, KathyDavis.com is a greeting card company. Now, Kathy Davis, she started her life, I think, as a classroom teacher and an artist. And she started designing greeting cards. She started designing greeting cards, and she turned it into a multi-million-dollar business. Now, I call her, this is more of an entrepreneur model because her mission is different than her art. She actually, I'm going to go to this next slide here. She has a mission of scattering joy through art, living, and giving, and she has she's selling greeting cards. That's the kind of commodity that she's selling in the marketplace, but she's doing it in this way where her art is kind of, her art aids what she's selling. So in an entrepreneur model, it's like your mission's a little bit, it's not bigger than, but it's beyond your art. And your art is serving what you're doing. She also continues to teach. I mean, I don't know if she personally teaches classes, but her company has the Scatter Joy Center for the Arts, and they sponsor all these programs for kids and all these classes. So she, like, her teaching artist spirit is still in her business. So I think it's such a great example of what she does. So kind of in thinking about the entrepreneur, it's like, how are you, I ask you to ask yourself a couple of questions. Are you doing this work as an artist to change the world? And are you up for leading that change? And if so, maybe you're an entrepreneur. What do you
Interesting.
think?
Your picture has materialized back in front of me.
I know, we have some questions.
Fantastic. So you're really differentiating between the that, as you call it, self-employed teaching artist, and then someone who has set up this whole other business that involves teaching artistry to a degree, but perhaps has some other underlying mission, maybe inspired by that work and involving the arts. But this is entirely different, though, from the sort of solo artist who teaches and maybe gets picked up by this or that cultural organization or school to do a class here or there. The fellow that you referenced as a self-employed example, a really successful self-employment example, has got his website together. He's really formulating who he is and what he does, what he brings to the table. But it's different than this other thing, right?
Yeah, and I think that they're really both, interesting models to look at, and they're both really solid ways to look at yourself as a business and to form a business around your art. There's one question here that I want to address. Laura asks us, says, teaching artists, let's see, what do you recommend for teaching artists with lots of experience but who haven't taught in the past 5 years? I'm an artist designer looking to get back into teaching, and it seems the playing field has changed so much. And that's interesting. I think that that's true, and I think that one of the reasons you could talk about this a lot, Jean, about how the playing field has changed so much. Getting back into teaching, I feel like there's a lot of ways to, like you said, Jean, you can put yourself on rosters, right? You can you can apply for all the arts education organizations. You can get yourself on rosters. You can, what are some other ways what's other advice we have for Laura in terms of getting?
One of the things that I think's changed in the last 5 years, actually, is that I've seen, and this may be just my perspective, but I've seen a lot of growth in the networks available to teaching artists and to artists. There's a lot of structures available out there now that weren't so strong or so visible 5 years ago, and I think TAG is one of those. But there's a lot more awareness in the community going on. And there's a lot of professional development that's surfacing that wasn't really there before. So perhaps even though you have a lot of experience, connecting with some professional development opportunities in your area as a way to network and kind of reintroduce yourself to the scene as you are now, to really be able to talk in person about who you are and what you do and what you bring to the table.
Yeah, and I would say too, in terms of Laura, being an artist designer, taking an entrepreneurial approach is actually a really good idea for you, right? There's a lot of people who want to understand, what you do and how you do it. And I don't know your work or what you do, but if you could really develop your why, what is your approach to design? What how do you apply your design? You could create a course, and you could create an online course. Visual artists can create online courses too, which is a great way to get back into it. But you could create a course for yourself that you are kind of putting out there yourself, and it's just a way to get yourself out there. If you don't want to do it ultimately, that's the thing too about thinking of entrepreneurially. Even if you don't really want to run a business, to have entrepreneurial skills could get you like the ideal job that you want, because when you have a presence online and when you have all these things, the other kinds of people who are looking for you, it makes them easier to find you. It makes them easier to understand what you do and who you are. So I'd say, Laura, create a course for yourself and try to sell it. There's another question that we have, a couple more questions. Evelyn's on the East Coast starting out doing art workshops with adults. Is $40 per person a good starting point to charge? I would need to know a little bit more about how long your workshops are, what you're doing. But I would say $40 is not a lot. You could charge more than that. Charge more. I don't know. Like it's what to charge is really difficult. That's a really hard one. But again, I feel like visual art, especially visual art, anyone who's a visual artist, photographer, people really want those skills and pay a lot of money for them. Check out like online courses around art making and photography and see how much people will charge for them. And being in the room and having, like, I don't know, Evelyn, I don't know what you do or like what your experience is, but like really don't sell yourself short. I think that you can get away with charging, a couple $100s for a workshop that's a few hours long, and I don't. People will pay it. Try to like put yourself to the maximum end of what you can charge. That's what I think.
I've got 2 points to add on that, Lynn, really quickly. And one is, again, yeah, we'd have to know more, I think, about, your situation and what you're offering and all that kind of stuff, and to whom as well. I think that's an important thing to take into consideration. Is this at a senior center and you're working with folks who are on a limited income anyway, or, who's the audience, who's the customer? Is that what you would say, Lynn?
Yeah, the customer.
But maybe working backwards as well. What do you need to get out of this in order to make it worth your time? And
exactly, yeah.
Right. But this is a much larger question. I'm really glad you asked this, though, because it's something that we're beginning to look at as a field. How much should we be making? And that's going to vary, depending on experience and depending on region and all sorts of things. But there's such a huge variety of rates out there right now, and some of them are really poor, and that's rough. I mean, because we're working at the point where two really typically underfunded things in the United States come together, right? You've got education on the one hand and arts on the other, and you put those together and whoa, where's the money? Oh my God. Yeah.
But people pay a lot of money outside the systems for both those things.
Yes, for both of those things. So lots to do there. But there's a group nationally that's working in conjunction with us here at TAG on establishing a pay calculator. We're working with the Economic Policy Institute on developing a pay calculator for teaching artists to begin to get at some of these issues. So know that that's being worked on and talked about, and join us for further conversations to go deeper into that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. I just want to really quickly, there's another question here that I want to address about marketing, which is will take us down a big rabbit hole. But real quickly before I address that question, I want to talk a little bit about the kind of field that I have been really connecting to, which is the field of social entrepreneurship. Can you indulge me to talk about that?
Oh, please. I was hoping you would.
Okay. So one thing let me share this real quick again. One thing I really want to just touch on is kind of what a social entrepreneur is. And for those of you who, you probably have heard this term before, but it's really kind of the field of business where people through their businesses are working to solve a social or environmental problem. And so because of that, social entrepreneurs are socially driven, which makes me believe that this is the perfect space for teaching artists to be in, because we already come to the work with with some kind of do-good mission. We want to, we're not, if we were in it just for the money, we might not be doing what we're doing right now currently. So we're comfortable with the socially driven part. I think what what might challenge us as teaching artists is the growth oriented part. How do we take an idea, an innovative idea, and grow it so that it actually can work towards solving some sort of social problem? Because that is what, I really love this idea of business kind of stepping in to help solve problems. Now, social entrepreneurs are actually come in all kinds of business structures, both for-profit and nonprofit. So that's been really important to remember. If you're thinking about starting a nonprofit organization, this can apply to you as well, because nonprofits are thinking much more entrepreneurially, businesses are thinking much more about social impact. So it's all kind of merging together. We all have to be resourceful, because there's not a lot. There's, like, on one hand, a lot of money out there, but it's hard to get it. And how do you make do with things when there's not a lot out there? It's important in this case, social entrepreneurs are accountable. So if I'm saying that I'm going to solve a problem, if my organization's mission, which it is to ignite a compassion revolution by putting girls center stage, how am I showing changes in the girls who I work with? How am I showing that they are more connected to themselves and each other through the work that we do? And I have to be really transparent and accountable to that. And of course, there has to be passion, or else why do this work in the first place? I found this cool business. You might know about this guy is a performance artist who started off in San Francisco, and the social mission that he's working on is healthy lifestyles. He really wants people to be more healthy in their body, and he was really upset about the high rates of type 2 diabetes and all that kind of stuff. And the way that he's solving this problem is through kind of storytelling and theater and people connecting to their culture. And so he's put together this business called The People's Cook. It's actually based in Minnesota, where he has like he has a cooking show he does, and he has like live events, and he has workshops for kids, and it's all about connecting food and theater and storytelling, which I think is the coolest idea ever, as a teaching artist social enterprise. So there's one idea. And then, of course, I have to pub my own business, Go Girls Camp. We are based here in the San Francisco Bay Area. We have 5 different locations here, in Oakland, Berkeley, San Francisco, and in Palo Alto, and in Sonoma. We are a for-profit entity. I am very excited about being able to make my own money as an artist and not have to rely on a nonprofit system. And our girls are, Go Girls Camp started in 2008, which is 17 girls in a church basement in Oakland. And this summer we're going to serve between 400 and 500 girls. And so we're really excited about the movement that we're creating. And I've been working for the past few months on really growing, creating business plans to really grow this movement even beyond the San Francisco Bay Area. And I'm super excited because we are about to, on May 16th, be one of the first companies in the country that is going to be seeking investors for our business. People will be able to buy shares in our business at almost any financial level. It's this new change to the Securities Act where businesses can start crowdsourcing investors from all kinds of people. It used to be you can only do it through rich people. Basically, only rich people can invest in businesses directly. But now you can actually get investors from anybody, and investing in a business is such a cool idea. The idea that people can invest in my business because they believe in what I'm doing, but also get a financial return is so exciting. So I love that I can spread a social mission and also be generating my own money to do that. So I'm proud of that. So I want to share that with y'all.
Wow. Holy cow, Lynn.
Yeah. Right?
That's fascinating. Yeah.
So just let me just finish this up because I know that we're kind of coming to the end of our time. In terms of, if people are doing this, they're ready to do this. So there was questions about like, okay, what do I need to do and marketing and all that kind of stuff. So I feel like, it's a lot of work, and it's hard to put a lot of work into into a 5-step process. But this is the main points you have to do. So it's really important to determine your business purpose and mission and really be clear on it. So, is the purpose of your business to sell your art and to kind of like that Randy model, right? Where you're really doing the work that you're doing, and you want to teach kids what you do, or teach adults what you do. And that's fantastic. Is it a bigger social purpose? What is your purpose and what's your mission? And whatever it is, be clear about it, right?
And that goes back to the why.
Right, exactly. That's your why. That's your teaching artist philosophy, or teaching artist entrepreneur philosophy. And then it's about identifying and addressing a market need that honors your art, passion, and lifestyle. So who was it here? Mary asked, how do you market your services, classes, workshops? Marketing can be expensive and time-consuming. Any tips? Mary has a dance program for kids and teens in San Francisco. So, one thing I want to say about marketing, Mary, is that a lot of times we think of marketing as teaching artists. We think of marketing as spreading the word about what we have, like about our event, about our class, we feel like it's the promotional piece, but marketing is actually bigger than that. It's really about how to get what you do in front of the people who want to have it. And so, marketing takes a lot of time, and it could take a lot of money, but it's kind of it's one of the most important parts of your business, and it takes the most time. And so one thing I would encourage you to do is to give it a little bit more time, and to not to try not to be resentful of it. I know it's easy to feel resentful of that, but I hate that this is the answer, but it takes more time. I want you to give it more time rather than less, because it's so important. And so one thing I would ask you to do is really think about who you're trying to attract. Like, I don't know your program, what your class is, but who is your customer? Like, do parents pay money to have their kids sign up for the class? And if so, then the parents are your customer. So how do you reach those parents? Is your program one where you provide lots of scholarships, and it's, some kids get to come for free? And if so, then you're really needing to put yourself in front of community organizations that work with kids in underserved communities. And how do you put yourself in front of them? So it's really, really thinking specifically about who you want to be in your class, who's your ideal student, and how do you get to them? So I hope that kind of answers your question. So we can talk more about marketing, but number 3, we have to learn as teaching artists to celebrate and manage our money. And this is something that I have worked so hard on, because I used to be like, I don't care about money. I don't like money. I'm afraid of money. I don't want to talk about it. And that just doesn't work. If we want money, like as Jean was saying, if we want more money for what we do, we have to really start to really celebrate it and embrace it and get really comfortable with it. I've been asking a lot of people for money lately, and I've gotten to the place where I actually like it, which is so crazy, right? Because I feel like, because once you start to celebrate money, you start to really value your work. And I feel like, oh, I'm not begging people for money to help me out. I feel like I'm giving people an opportunity to invest in something awesome. And so that's that. So we have to learn how to celebrate money. We of course have to create efficient systems that allow us to work independently and effectively. And that also goes to Mary's question. There's lots of really cool, this is 2016. There's an app for everything. And there's so many cool apps that I have used that allow, that allow the kind of marketing, the everyday marketing tasks you have to do to go a little bit easier. So there's so much cool stuff out there that will help help that happen. And then 5, it's about, this is also part of marketing, which is communicating what sets you apart to put yourself in front of your ideal customers. So really understanding how to talk to yourself, which then it's circular, because it goes back to your why. And that's usually what sets you apart, your why and your how.
Mm-hmm.
So I've stopped sharing now. Am I back to my face?
You're back.
Okay, cool.
Welcome back.
There's some more questions. What do you want to do now, Jean? We have, we only have about 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to get some more questions. You mentioned when we were talking about this, talking a little bit about the one major, not major, but con that arose for you in doing some of this work, into to merging from work as an artist or as a teaching artist into entrepreneurship. And I'd love to see that addressed before we sign off today as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that to me, the one major con in going the entrepreneur path is that there's not a lot of time for the art making in the traditional sense anymore. So, I think that kind of comes to Mary's question, like, gosh, marketing takes so much time, and it really does. And so when you get to the place where you kind of get to the place where your business becomes your art form, which is an interesting way of thinking about it. Like, I still call myself a teaching artist, even though I haven't been in a classroom for a little while. I mean, I teach a lot. That's not true. I actually taught a workshop 2 weeks ago. But in terms of, I haven't taught kids in a long time. I taught a workshop for adults. There were actually some teens in the room. So anyway, I'm not an artist, though. I've been teaching, but I haven't been a theater artist for a long time. And I know that part of a teaching artist identity is that you are an artist, you're practicing your art form, and you're teaching. And to me, I have my teaching, but I also have my art form, which is my business now. And that doesn't work for a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people are like, no, my art form is what I do. I don't want to spend my time running a business. Mm-hmm. So to me, that's that's something to consider. And then it's like, how do you create then you're kind of more in that self-employed place, and how do you then create enough of a structure, setting yourself apart, but
still holding a place for the art to live.
And there's ways to do that. I mean, that's why I love that Randy Emberlin model, because he's still making his art, he's still doing his stuff, but he's not doing it on this level beyond, like, getting my art. My art is the product, and that's really important.
Mm-hmm. So folks need to be able to identify, where do they fall?
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. There's a cool.
Let's get to some questions.
There are a lot of research grants that teaching artists are instrumental in. Once the curriculum is designed and developed by teaching artists, the cultural arts organization seems to own all the data and ownership of a successful program. Has anyone out there experimented with taking the expertise that we bring to these programs and branched off on their own to market them? Pat, that's a great question.
That is such a good question. That's a really good question. It seems to be kind of default that cultural institutions and hiring organizations of teaching artists are using kind of the university model, whereby you sign away all your creative license, your rights, anything that you make while you're there under them is theirs. And I don't like that one.
Like that either.
I don't like that either. Let's take that back.
Well, I feel like that's an advantage of being a self-employed person, because, I mean, you could theoretically, I mean, so if someone hires you as an employee, it's pretty standard, right? If I hire you as my employee, whatever you create belongs to me.
Right. I've asked you to make something. I'm paying you to make it for me.
Right. But if you go into a situation as a self-employed person, which a lot of time we do with teaching artists, you go into a project, you could negotiate owning the rights to what you created. Do it. Like, why not? Especially if you go in there knowing what you know and being really proactive about it. So if you've given some thought and created curriculum before, you can really package that and go in with that and say, I've created this thing and I'd like to sell it to you, basically. That's very entrepreneurial thinking, Pat, because it's different than I'm a worker for hire. It's I've given thought and shape already to this process, and I'm gonna kind of sell you my thinking, and then we could kind of adapt it, or we could share ownership or something like that. I don't know an example of that, but I think it's a freaking good idea.
Fascinating. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
We'll do some further thinking about that.
Let's see. I'm trying to see other questions here. Oh, Dave recommended his work. So regarding marketing our services, Dave Roosh has been writing blog posts on the topic of teaching artists and performers, articles like how to get gigs in schools and how to work, do you work too cheap? If appropriate, please feel free to share. So Dave, great. Let's share Dave's website for sure. I don't know how to share it on here, but I will definitely share it when we set the email. Yeah, daveruch.com, daveruch.com/advice. It's all free. Thanks, Dave. I will definitely share that.
It's a great resource.
So let's see. Oh God, there's so many questions. This is amazing. Thank you, Sandrine. Just left New York's face-to-face conference. You should definitely send in a proposal. I'll do a workshop next year. Okay. Great. Let's do that. I want to make sure that I can't get to every question, because I want to make sure that we end with a little pitch, right, Jean? Really quickly, I am. Let's see. I want to share with you a course that I'm teaching. I'm going to be teaching an online course starting. It's going to be premiering March 24th. Is that correct? Yes, March 24th. Called The Teaching Artist Entrepreneur. For those of you who are interested in kind of going forward in this direction, there's a bunch of stuff I know, and I'd love to teach it to you. So in this course, what we'll be doing is I'll be helping you to really discover your purpose and mission for your business. Which direction do you want to go in? What are you selling? Who's your market? And then create a business plan that really works for you, and a plan that honors your passion, your lifestyle, and the amount of money that you want to make. So that's kind of the main points. I'm going to give you what you need to set up shop if you want to create an official structure. So do you want to be, whether you're a sole proprietor or, a nonprofit even, or, an LLC, what do you need to what forms do you need? How do you get what you need to set up your business? Also, we'll go through some of those tools that I was talking to Mary about, some of the tools and systems that you need to do your work in your business effectively, efficiently, and to really thrive. And then the cool thing about an online course that can really connect us to a community of people across the country who are thinking about these issues, like teaching artists who really believe that we have the skills to make a business that people want to buy into. We can connect to each other through this online community. The Teaching Artist Entrepreneur. This course premieres May 24th online. When it premieres in May 24th, it's going to retail at $499. But if you're a member of Teaching Artists Guild, the course will only cost you $249. Now, the cool thing is that right now, because we're pre-selling the course, it hasn't premiered yet, we're going to be pre-selling it for $199 if you're a TAG member. But the cool thing is that if you act now, before May 1st, which is Sunday, you can get the whole thing for $79, which is a huge savings. I can't do the math that fast, how much percentage that's off, but it's a lot. So just $79 for this course, and and like I said, after Monday it'll be $199. This is for TAG members. So you must need to be a TAG member, a Teaching Artists Guild member.
What do they have to do? They got to go to the website and click on the Sign Me Up button.
What does it mean? What does being a
Oh,
tag?
what does it mean? Oh, yay.
Why do you want to be a tag member?
Why do you want to be a tag member?
Oh.
Because it's a guild for artists who teach. It's a community nationally, networking groups of teaching artists, arts educators, arts and community folks, all together to work on the important issues. So whether that for you is the bread and butter stuff and wages, whether it's connecting you to resources like Lynn and her courses, we offer discounts and services on the really unsexy stuff, as I like to call it, but the important stuff like dental and finding a really good person to do your taxes who understands where you're coming from in this field, and all of those kinds of bits and pieces we offer as part of membership. And we're working on the big issues as well, which is the philosophy, the advocacy, the why do I do it? How do I do it better? How do we value this? And how do we get the word out about that to the rest of the world and in our communities? So if you're not already a tag member, come on over. There's free membership levels as well. Get on the email list and all that kind of stuff. I don't want to deter anybody from going that route, but definitely sign up to do a membership with us and join the team. It's kind of fun over here.
And if you're already a Teaching Artists Guild member, you'll go to teachingartistsguild.com or no .org. Sorry,
there you go. We're a nonprofit organization.
And if you're already a Teaching Artists Guild member, like I said, you can become. Sorry. There you go. You can pre-register for $79 for the Teaching Artist Entrepreneur online course. We will follow up this. I mean, you can kind of act now. You'll see here on your screen that you can sign up there. One thing that you will need, so this is for all paid Teaching Artists Guild members. Like Jean said, there is a free membership, but this is for people who pay at either the allied membership level or the full membership level. And the full membership level is a great level. I'm at that level. Allows you to really get access to all those super cool, as Jean said, boring benefits of the
vitals.
And the things that we need to kind of get us through our lives. So if you're at that level, so when you register for the course, it is going to ask you to confirm what level of tag membership you are at, and when your tag membership began. So you'll want to log on to your tag membership and get that date. And we will follow up this webinar, which is almost over now, with an email that gives you the presentation that we showed you. Mm-hmm. We'll give you a link to the article, the Atlantic article. We'll give you Dave's website. And we'll give you an opportunity to kind of think about the course and see if you want to join me.
Oh, it will also link to our in-person events. Teaching Artists Guild is starting a national conversation series, so I'd love to see some of you folks in person. We'll be in Oakland next week, and then in Los Angeles 2 weeks later, and then TBD in New York for this first round of conversations in person with some wine and some snacks, and a guided conversation talking about balancing it all, the teaching, the art, the learning yourself, the rest of your life, all of those balls in the air. How do we do it? What are some best practices? How do you do it? And discussing those things in person. So I hope I can meet some of you at the in-person event.
I'll be there.
Sweet. Nice. Well, I think we have to call it.
Great.
This has been fun.
Thank you so much, Jean, for having me today.
Thank you so much for being here, Lynn, and thanks to everybody out there. We've just been overwhelmed with how many of you were excited about this, and I hope you'll follow up with us in some of these other events and resources to serve you in what you do. You are awesome. Keep being awesome.
Awesome. Awesome. Remember, I'll say it again. I say it all the time. I'll say it again. You teaching artists, we totally have what everyone wants. We can make and we can teach others to be their creative selves. And that's really, it's so many people need our skills. So let's sell it to them. Yeah. Thanks, Jean.
Thanks, Lynn.